It's been a while. Alright, so this is the kit. This is bottom end only. I figured I'd do the bottom end first and then worry about getting the top end put together, right? So we've got new bolts, the oil cooler seals, front crank seal, rear crank seal that comes with that giant plate, little sealant. We've got the thrust bearing, we've got the conrod bearings and the main bearings. Really everything that we're going to need. Oil pump chain over there. So all the various parts that we're going to need to put into that block. Right over here, we've got the block. You can see down in here, I have my oil squirters removed right now, and I do need to finish kind of cleaning out everything in here. You can see just from sitting, there's you know, some debris in the cylinders like this right here. That's probably not something we want to have going long term, but it all does come right off, right? So we just got to clean it up and get it ready to go. So gosh, this is kind of crazy, but I guess the next step is we're going to start getting parts together. We're going to get this thing cleaned up and start getting everything together. Here are the oil squirters right here. I am not going to get these completely installed at this point. I'm going to take these back out once I have them all cleaned off and make sure I've got everything and all that. They're just kind of in the way when it comes to cleaning things out in there. For now, I just want to make sure I've got all the parts. Well, the way they've finished their casting, it's very smooth right in this area over here. Then you have this area right here that is not as smooth right in there, right to about here. On the smooth area, we'll have some silicone in it. It probably won't affect the sealing because you shouldn't be sealing over there anyway. That's probably just sealant that has kind of squished through when the factory assembled it, which is fine. But I do recommend getting that cleared out. So you do want to look in there and make sure you've got all that. Now, something else I'm finding, I've got some sealant that is in here. It's kind of hardened and gone into one of these holes. So again, you're going to want to look in there and make sure you're getting everywhere that needs to be gotten. That mating surface is now cleaned up and looking pretty good. This mating surface back here isn't really very critical. It's not a oil-filled surface. This is where the transmission will be. But still, why not clean it up, right? We want it to look nice when we put her back in. Going through all this effort, might as well have something pretty to show for it. So moving on, still just a little bit on this head that needs to get scraped off. And this is the cylinder that I'm worried about, is this number 2. This is the one that failed. Bearing was all out of whack on. I realize hope is not a plan, but that's my plan. There is, interestingly enough, a little bit of, it's kind of hard to see, but right in here there's a little bit of imperfection in the mating surface. I don't think that's going to affect us. It's just a slight bit of pitting, but you know, if later on I wake up and I've got low compression or some coolant leaking, that's probably where it's from. I'm just going to try to keep them from getting a little rusty on those steel bores. Now that things are cleaned up a bit, the oil squirters can go in. Obviously, once the crankshaft's in, we're pretty much done with the opportunity to install these. As I got ready to install the crank, the bearings, the pistons, I started to take a little deeper look, just wanted to make sure. So this is the number 2 cylinder that we're showing right here. This is the one that had the bad bearing to begin with. And it looks like, and again, difficult to see, but inside of here, if I can find it, there is a little bit of a scratch that you can really kind of feel. I didn't notice it before because I really couldn't get my my hand in there and really look at it until I got to this point. But right up in here, there is a line, an indentation on the cylinder wall, and it does kind of catch a fingernail. I'm going to try to move the camera around and see if we'll be able to see it. So right in there, there's a little bit of a line. Again, hard to see. But basically, that cylinder definitely needs some attention. The first thing I went out and did is rental from the parts store. Typical 3 stone hone. First thing I noticed about it is 2 of these stones are cracked right out of the box. Looks like this thing's brand new, never been used. I don't know if that's a problem or not, but that worried me a little. And then the second thing that I worried about is I've again kind of heard that these are a really good way to get the engine honed, and they're also a really good way to destroy a block. So I wasn't really sure, having not really ever honed an engine myself before. So instead, but I got myself one of these. So a Flexzone from BRM. So I've never used one of these either, but apparently the theory here is that we can spin this on a drill and get it in and out of the cylinder. So hopefully we've got the right size based on the bore that's published for these. This should be the right hone. So we're gonna angle this thing a little bit, lube it up with a little transmission fluid, and we're going to get in there, hone that, and see if by honing it, if we can take that down a little bit. It may be possible that the only solution is to bore it out. If that's the case, then I'm into it for 6 new pistons plus the machine shop time to bore it out. It doesn't look like re-sleeving the block is a option. I haven't been able to find any sleeves, although these are, you can see they are iron sleeves or steel sleeves inside the aluminum block. So that's probably my only option, is to do a little overbore on it. At that point, I don't know if I'll commit to the extra $1,200, or at that point if I'll just say we're done. So anyway, let's get ready to try some honing. I have the Flexzone attached to my drill. This drill says it spins at 600 RPM. And the Flexzone instructions, which are printed right on the side of the box, they say we should be between 500 and 800 RPM, so 600's right in there. It says that we should go for a 60 to 120 strokes per minute, so 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000. We should go 20 to 45 seconds worth of a hone. I'm going to start at that 20-second kind of time frame. And then see what we've got. Whoa, to lube it up, and that's going to be a little more of a coat than I expected to give it. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we get plenty of ATF up on there. Here goes nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So that makes a mess. So pro tip, careful with that. We'll kind of clean this off. You can see it definitely took some material off. Okay, definitely has some cross hatching. Now I can see those marks in there still. Oh, yep, I can definitely still feel it. Right there, I can still feel that mark. So we're going to give it another little bit and see what we got. Well, it's definitely better than it was. There's still a little ways to go on that, I think. So after cleaning a few things up with the Flexzone, there's still a tiny little bit of feel on that, but it's down low enough, we're not going to worry about it. I've checked with a few folks that are more knowledgeable than I, and general consensus is it's not perfection, but it is essentially an immeasurable imperfection. The next step is to go ahead and get everything cleaned up from the Flexzone operation. It produces a lot of grit, and we need to make sure that it is all out of here. We'll get all the tape off, and then I'm going to get in there with some automatic transmission fluid on a rag, and we're just going to go and clean this cylinder up. So I'm going to start with a nice rag. It's definitely got some stuff in there, and we want to get that stuff out. So just a little transmission fluid on a rag. I'm just going to get in there and clean that out. We need to go ahead and get the pistons cleaned up a little bit. This is the number 2 piston. I think Chris already had it out. So what needs to happen here, just try to get the carbon off of it as best we can. Just kind of clean them up. I don't know that it matters too much. They're going to get pretty much just like this right away, but let's just make sure all the rings are moving and we're as tidied up as we can get. Alright, well, I started with the number 2 piston, and it's a really good thing that I decided I wanted to kind of clean these up. The rag just kind of barely caught on the oil control ring, and this happened. So I suspected I put this back together with that ring in place. That ring probably would have broken off at some point inside the engine, and that would have been, I think the technical term is bad. So I am back at a little bit of a holding spot now. I'm not going to be able to continue on this right at this moment. I'm going to have to order up a set of rings. And I guess the real question is if I re-ring all 6 cylinders or just re-ring the one. I don't know if there's any real need to re-ring the other 6. I think this is the one, this oil control ring, I believe, is what came a little bit loose and is what caused the scoring on the inside of the cylinder. When the rod bearing went out. So I think that's why this was bad. This oil ring was all askew on the piston when I started, and I think that
is when the damage happened. I don't think I need to worry about the other ones. So I think I'm probably just going to wind up re-ringing this one piston and putting it back in. But I can't do anything further with this piston until I have rings for it. So we're going to go ahead and bring this to a close right now, and we'll be back in the next part when I have some piston rings.